The flashing lights painted the quiet suburban street in strokes of red and blue, a grim watercolor bleeding into the pre-dawn darkness. I stood on the sidewalk, my police uniform feeling less like a symbol of authority and more like a cheap costume. The world had tilted on its axis, a dizzying, nauseating spin that threatened to throw me to the ground. 16. She was only 16. The words echoed in the hollow space where my heart used to be. My daughter, my wild, untamable, beautiful, impossible daughter, was gone. It felt like just yesterday I was holding her in my arms, this tiny, perfect creature, her little fingers wrapped around mine. I remembered her first steps, wobbly and uncertain, her face breaking into a triumphant grin as she reached me. I remembered her first day of school, her backpack almost as big as she was, turning to wave one last time before disappearing into the building. Where did that little girl go? When did the light in her eyes get replaced by a defiant storm? My wife Sarah and I had tried. God, we tried. But it felt like we were shouting into a hurricane. Every conversation became a battle. Her bedroom door, once a gateway to a world of fairy tales and stuffed animals, became a fortress, plastered with posters of bands I'd never heard of, a permanent do not enter sign hanging on the knob. The sweet smell of baby powder was replaced by the acrid scent of cheap perfume and smuggled cigarettes. It started small, as it always does. A missed curfew here, a lie about her, whereabouts there. Then came the calls from school. Skipping class, disrespecting teachers. We grounded her, took away her phone, lectured until we were blue in the face. It was like pouring water on a grease fire. It only seemed to make things worse. She'd just stare at us with those cold, resentful eyes, the same eyes that once looked at me with pure adoration. Then the defiance escalated. She started dating guys who were far too old for her, men with tattoos and shadows in their eyes that made my cop instincts scream. I saw her once, climbing into a souped-up muscle car with a guy who looked like he'd seen the inside of a jail cell more than once. When I confronted her, she just laughed. "Lighten up, Dad. It's just for fun." Fun. My little girl, my baby, thought this was fun. The drinking started. We'd find empty bottles hidden under her bed, in the back of her closet. Sarah would cry, begging her to stop, to talk to us. I'd yell, my fear and frustration boiling over into anger. I'd pull the "I'm a cop, I've seen where this leads" card. She'd just roll her eyes. "You're not my dad right now. You're just a cop." The words cut deeper than she could ever know. One night, I came home to find my own patrol car missing from the driveway. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic search ended with a call from a neighboring precinct. They'd found it abandoned a few towns over, my daughter and her friends having taken it for a joyride. The humiliation I felt facing my colleagues was nothing compared to the crushing sense of failure as a father. I was supposed to protect the public, and I couldn't even protect my own daughter from herself. The arguments with Sarah became a constant, low-frequency hum in our home. "You're too hard on her," she'd say, her voice trembling. "She's pushing back because you're pushing too hard. And you're too soft," I'd fire back. "She walks all over you because she knows she can." We were a team, once. United. Now, our daughter had become a chasm between us, and we stood on opposite sides, shouting across the void, neither of us able to reach the other. And now, this. A stolen car, a high-speed chase, a telephone pole that didn't move. The other officer's words were a blur, a jumble of professional jargon that failed to soften the brutal reality. Single vehicle accident, pronounced at the scene. Back was well over the limit. Drunk. She was drunk. My 16-year-old daughter died drunk in a stolen car. Every nightmare I'd ever had as a parent had coalesced into this one, single, horrific moment. I stumbled back into the house, the silence inside a deafening roar. I walked past her closed bedroom door, that fortress of secrets, and I couldn't bring myself to open it. What would I find? More empty bottles. A diary filled with words of hate for the parents who just wanted to keep her safe. I couldn't face it. I collapsed onto my own bed, the weight of it all pressing down on me, squeezing the air from my lungs. My world wasn't just crumbling, it had been atomized. There was nothing left but dust and echoes. Memories flashed behind my closed eyes. Her laughing on a swing set, her face smeared with birthday cake, her hand in mine as we crossed the street. Little moments of a life that felt 1,000,000 years ago. A life I had failed to save. I closed my eyes, wishing the world would just dissolve around me. A shrill, piercing wail sliced through the suffocating silence. My eyes snapped open. The sound was insistent, demanding. I bolted upright, my heart pounding in my chest, a cold sweat slicking my skin. The room was dark, but not the pre-dawn gray of my nightmare. It was the deep, quiet dark of the middle of the night. My head swiveled, trying to make sense of the jarring shift. The red and blue lights were gone. The suffocating grief was receding. And then I saw it. Next to the bed, in the small, white bassinet, a tiny form was stirring. The wail came again, a raw, primal cry for comfort. My daughter, my baby daughter. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her tiny fists were clenched, her face scrunched up in a tiny, red knot of infant frustration. She was so small, so new, a few months old, not a day more. My gaze shifted to the other side of the bed. Sarah was sleeping peacefully, her chest rising and falling in a steady, gentle rhythm, oblivious to the storm that had just raged through my mind. It wasn't real. None of it was real. The defiance, the older men, the drinking, the stolen cars, the crash. It was a dream. A terrifying, hyper-realistic, soul-crushing nightmare. A wave of something immense washed over me, so powerful, it almost knocked me back against the pillows. It was relief, but it was more than that. It was gratitude. A profound, bone-deep gratitude that felt like a physical force. I reached out and gently placed my hand on my daughter's tiny chest. I could feel her little heartbeat, a fast, strong rhythm beneath my palm. She was here. She was safe. She was perfect. The tears that I couldn't shed in my dream came now, hot and silent, tracking down my face. They weren't tears of grief, but of overwhelming love and a second chance I never knew I needed. I looked from my sleeping daughter to my sleeping wife, the two most precious people in my universe, and I made a silent promise. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if the teenager from my nightmare was a premonition or just a manifestation of a new father's deepest fears. But I knew one thing. I would not take a single moment for granted. Every scraped knee, every temper tantrum, every slammed door, I would face it not with anger, but with the memory of this gut-wrenching gift. The gift of a nightmare that woke me up to the heaven I was already living in. I had a second chance, and I would spend every day of my life making it count.